When something like this happens to you, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I didn't keep hoping it would happen. All the speeches that you've made up in your bedroom or in the bathtub go out of your mind completely. And you find that out of all the words in the world, just two stick in your mind. Thank you.
Hi everyone, and thank you for joining me. In this video, I want to talk about the Best Actress nominees of 1967. A small warning right ahead, I will only talk a little bit about things like how the nominated performances were received or the context for these nominations in 1967. For this kind of truly detailed information, I highly recommend the videos by Be Kind Rewind. Her channel is full of amazing insights about various Best Actress races and other great topics, and when appropriate, I will link to her videos here, as you should definitely check them out. Instead, I will only give you my personal opinions on the performances of these 5 nominees and who I would have picked as the Best Actress of 1967. Obviously, I could talk about each Best Actress nominee for hours, but I will try to keep it short and simple. So with all this said, the nominees in 1967 were
Katharine Hepburn in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Anne Bancroft in The Graduate, Dame Edith Evans in The Whisperers, Faye Dunaway in Bonnie and Clyde, and Audrey Hepburn in Wait Until Dark.
In my opinion, this is one of the most exciting Best Actress lineups of all time. Not because all 5 nominated performances are undeniable, but because it's a wonderful clash of old and new Hollywood, and we have legendary actresses competing with legendary performances, and an extra dose of British acting royalty just for good measure.
When my affairs are settled, perhaps I shall be able to offer you a place in my household.
Ah, God bless you, love.
This lineup beautifully represents this whole era when a new style of movie making was competing with the last efforts of classic studio productions, which is also shown in the Best Picture lineup, where movies like The Graduate and Bonnie and Clyde competed against Dr. Dolittle.
Isn't it a pity you're a seal?
Seriously. This year, the Best Actress category gave us 2 actresses who couldn't be more iconic if they tried. The 2 Hepburns, Katharine and Audrey, with their 10th, respectively 5th nominations. Neither of their nominated performances in 1967 usually ranks among their most famous efforts, but they are the legends. On the other side, there are 2 actresses from a different, newer era, Anne Bancroft and Faye Dunaway. Both very famous in their own right, but not cinematic giants like the 2 Hepburns. However, both were nominated for performances that belong to the most iconic creations in movie history. Mrs. Robinson in The Graduate, yes, that Mrs. Robinson.
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me.
And Bonnie Parker in Bonnie and Clyde. The actresses are not legends, but their performances are. The 5th nominee, Dame Edith Evans in The Whisperers, is a performer who somehow fits both and neither category. Having acted since 1917 and being one of the most admired British actresses from her era, she's certainly a giant in her own way, but still not as well known today as other British contemporaries. And her performance is also not a part of pop culture history, but it does have a strong following. It is a piece of work that only few have seen, but those who have very often call it one of the greatest performances ever nominated. All of these ingredients make for a highly interesting category. So let's look at the work of the 5 nominees in detail. Let's start with this year's winner.
I was given an Oscar for that last film, but I always felt that the award was really meant for both of us.
Ever since the second Academy Awards, when Mary Pickford won an Oscar for the critically panned Coquette, questions have constantly been raised about the different and various reasons behind specific Oscar wins. Are the awards truly only given for the performance itself, or did additional reasons cause the vote of Academy members? Did Patricia Neal only win for Hot, or also because of all the tragedies in her personal life? Did Elizabeth Taylor win for Butterfield 8, or because she almost died during Oscar voting? Okay, we probably know the answer on this one. Did Julie Andrews really win for her work as Mary Poppins, or because she wasn't allowed to play Eliza Doolittle in the movie version of My Fair Lady? Yes, we ask these questions a lot, particularly when we don't agree with a specific choice by the Academy. And these questions also surround Katharine Hepburn's second Best Actress win for her role as Christina Drayton in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. While this movie about an interracial relationship might have been revolutionary in its time, it is mostly noteworthy for how dated many parts of it became by now. Still, it is an interesting look at the thinking and feelings of the time. But the movie's legacy is primarily the ninth and last pairing of Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. I don't want to go into too much detail here. I assume you are aware of the famous on- and off-screen relationship. It was the first time they appeared together before the camera in 10 years, since 1957's Desk Set. And it was also the last time, as Spencer Tracy died shortly after production on Guess Who's Coming to Dinner completed. During the making of the movie, it was already obvious that Spencer Tracy was close to death, and Katharine Hepburn herself later described how she was with him when he died a couple of days later, but then left the house and didn't attend his funeral out of respect for his wife and family. Katharine Hepburn's lonely position as a widow who could only mourn in private was undoubtedly tragic and might easily have influenced Academy members when they filled out their ballots, maybe feeling that a vote for her was equal to consolation and support, which they could not express otherwise. Spencer Tracy's death is very often considered to be the main reason for Katharine Hepburn's Oscar win, but there were even more advantages on her side. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner had been her first movie in 5 years. As Spencer Tracy's health continued to decline, she abandoned her screen work completely to care for him. So there was a comeback feeling to this performance, and the question for Academy members just how selective she would continue to be, and how many more opportunities there would be to award her. Little did they know. And then there was the simple case of Oscar mathematics. By 1967, Katharine Hepburn hadn't won an Oscar in 34 years. She had been nominated for many classic performances such as Alice Adams, The Philadelphia Story, or The African Queen, and she was one of the few actresses who maintained a career from the golden age of Hollywood right into the 1960s. Plus, her 10th nomination for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner put her right next to Bette Davis as the most nominated performer ever, with the only difference that Bette Davis already had 2 Oscars compared to Katharine's 1. So, this was a lot of talk about how Katharine Hepburn might have won this purely out of sympathy or being overdue. But what do I think about her actual performance?
Guess who's coming to dinner?
Who? You mean his parents?
In Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy starred as a liberal couple whose beliefs are put to test when their daughter announces that she has fallen in love with and wants to marry a colored man.
Well, I don't think I'm going to faint. But I'll sit down anyway. Can't we all sit down?
The movie then asks the question, what does it mean for this couple when the black persons in the house are no longer only the maids? Are they really as open-minded as they always thought they are?
Nobody understands nothing no more.
To be fair, the role of Christina Drayton does sound more interesting than it actually is. In the parental structure, Katharine Hepburn portrays the more sympathetic side, who completes the transformation from shock to denial to acceptance to understanding in a short period of time. Spencer Tracy's Matt, on the other hand, goes through a long, personal and difficult journey during which he focuses on the danger and prejudice that this couple will face. And his ultimate decision is the grand finale of the story.
Well, can you tell me your reaction? How do you feel about it?
Oh, I don't know. I was shaken at first. I still am, I suppose. But, Matt, they're serious. They mean what they're saying. Both of them. They know what they're doing.
No, they may mean what they're saying. I accept that, but they don't know what they're doing. I won't accept that.
This positioning of these two characters already indicates that the arc of Christina Drayton is of much less impact to the overall storyline. She remains a very passive voice who mostly reacts and spends her time reflecting on the actions of others. She therefore often touches the story without affecting it, being more defined by what she is than by what she does. But even with those limitations, the importance of crafting this being instead of doing should not be underestimated. An actress needs to find the right balance of support and objection to become the kind of motherly love and loyal wife that she is supposed to be.
Really true? Is that really true? Oh, Mom. Joey, I want to ask you something. How deeply are you and John No, I have no right to
How deeply involved? Do you mean if we've been to bed together? I don't mind your asking me that. We haven't. He wouldn't.
It's a task that Katharine Hepburn fulfilled with warmth and tenderness, which is especially noteworthy since being a loving mother had never been part of her filmography. I mean.
Even when I was with him, even with me, he would sometimes be frightened, but I would know when and what of. I'd reach across the table to him and touch his hands. Say not a word, just look. And touch his hands with my hand.
But her usual determination and intensity shine through the passiveness of the character, and so she was able to find another layer in this role, a thoughtfulness that comes from her own decisions and ideas. And Katharine Hepburn realized that Christina Drayton is the much-needed strong and steady center of a family going through a radical change.
I need more than one day to make a decision like that. It's the silliest thing I ever heard of. But I'll tell you this. I am not going to try to pretend that I'm happy about the whole thing, because I'm not. And if the doctor's decision depends upon that, then it's just too bad. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel. And I know how you're reacting. You're so wrapped up in Joey's excitement over the whole thing that you are not behaving in her best interest.
Right from the start, Katharine Hepburn balances the task of showing Christina Drayton as a woman who always wants to be the kind of mother and wife her daughter and her husband need, but also as a woman with her own strength, who likes to find her own position, and who does much more for the sake of her family than is visible at the first moment.
You see, Matt, there's sort of a special problem.
See, I've got to fly to New York tonight and on to Switzerland tomorrow night.
Yes, and what Joey wants, what she proposes, is to go to Geneva herself so that they can be married within the next couple of weeks.
When he puts on his American Eagle face, nobody can tell what he's thinking, except Mom.
Yeah, well, I don't think he liked any of us after the silly way we began. Excuse me, will you give John some more coffee?
By focusing on this aspect of Christina Drayton, Katharine Hepburn took the limited aspects of the writing and beautifully turned it into the most memorable aspect of her performance, actively underlining the background role of Christina Drayton without limiting it.
Matt, I'm not trying to give you an argument. There's nothing I can say that you don't know anyway, but it's important that you understand just how wrong I think you... I believe you're making the worst mistake you've ever made, and I think you're going to regret it with more bitterness than you've ever known and for as long as you live. And one thing more. Until today, I would never have believed that I could say such a thing. But when she fights you, and for what it may be worth, I'm going to be on her side.
Katharine Hepburn's own strength on the screen prevents her from portraying Christina as a woman who is just overcome with happiness, but instead as a woman who chooses to feel happiness, giving her a quiet dignity and a much more independent life than the screenplay intended.
But I don't think I've ever seen her quite so happy as she is right now. And I have to be happy for her, Matt. And I am. I feel happy for her. And proud of the fact that we helped to make her. And whatever happens now, I feel glad that Joey's Joey.
It also has to be said that the two most memorable moments in the whole story are also delivered by Katharine. First, when she meets her daughter's fiancé for the first time.
John, Wade.
Joanna Prentice I'll be. But Mom, there's something else that I must tell you that John's been concerned about, very deeply concerned. He's been worrying for the past week whether you and Dad would be upset if... Well, it's about time. I was wondering where you'd been. Mom, this is John.
Dr. Prentice, I'm so pleased to meet you.
And then this scene, which is the kind of moment that makes audiences cheer and probably sealed her Oscar win.
And get permanently lost. It's not that I don't want to know you, Hillary, although I don't. It's just that I'm afraid we're not really the sort of people that you can afford to be associated with. Don't speak, Hillary. Just go.
Mom, do you know what Hillary was doing? She was being an absolute bitch. She was. I almost wish you'd fire her. I really do.
Joey, how can you be so hard? She has a really quite ruthless streak, John. You ought to be warned about it. She gets it from her father.
However, even with all this said, a lot of Katharine Hepburn's success in the role comes from the fact that her chemistry with Spencer Tracy is obviously excellent, and that her personality allows her to turn even the most uninspired lines into moments of treasure.
I think Mike was right, that Joey is lucky. The work he's doing is so important. She'll be able to help him with it and share it all with him. It's the best break any wife can have. You know, for us, it's all been great, but you know what was the best time of all? It was in the beginning when everything was a struggle and you were working too hard and worried and sometimes frightened. And there were times when I felt, when I really knew that I was a help to you. That was the very best time of all for me.
And all this makes it rather easy to overrate her work in a movie that is never as concerned with her character as she herself might be. Christina's early acceptance of her daughter's decision does not offer her any further development, instead of reacting to the emotional chaos around her. So, it is not a challenging or surprising performance, but Katharine Hepburn has to be applauded for doing more than the script initially intended for Christina. But even she can only do so much when being offered so little. Still, it feels fitting to give Kate at least one Oscar for appearing opposite Spencer Tracy, and it's hard to feel any resentment for this win when watching their final scene together.
And there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that your son feels for my daughter that I didn't feel for Christina. Old, yes. Burned out, certainly. But I can tell you, the memories are still there. Clear, intact, indestructible. And they'll be there if I live to be 110.
Knowing their personal history, the fact that they only had a couple of days left together, and that they so beautifully achieved a full circle in their on-screen partnership, going from this to this.
That's everything.
Makes this win maybe easy to criticize, but still hard to deny. Okay, so much for the winner. Now let's take a look at the other nominees. Let's start with the second legend in this category.
In 1967, you made Wait Until Dark, and then it was something like 10 years before you made another film. Now, we've heard all different reasons for why you stopped. You tell me.
It's a very simple reason, because my son had then reached the age of 6. And
This is Sean.
Sean had to go to school, could no longer travel with me. And in fact, I made Wait Until Dark when he had just started school, and he was not with me. because that picture was made in Hollywood. And I was just miserable.
Looking at the list of all those actors and actresses who received multiple Oscars during their career, it becomes immediately noticeable how varied this group is. There are legends like Bette Davis or Ingrid Bergman, character actors like Diane Wiest or Jason Roberts, and largely forgotten performers like Louise Reiner or Glenda Jackson. And then there are performers you might think have more than one Oscar due to their legendary status, but they don't. On the male side, you could name James Stewart or Henry Fonda. And for actresses, Audrey Hepburn might appear just as surprising to some. Was 1967 the year when she came close to becoming a two-time winner? Honestly, I have no idea. Oscar races back then were so completely different, pre-Oscar awards didn't play the same role, and campaigning was also not the same as today. But it's doubtful that a movie like Wait Until Dark would bring an acting Oscar to anyone involved. Audrey does have the showy role of a blind woman terrorized by a gang of criminals, doing a lot of acting. But suspense movies like this mostly bring you a nomination, but rarely a win. The fact that Audrey also had 2 for the road that year certainly was in her favor, and it was also her first nomination since the whole My Fair Lady controversy. But in the end, I cannot see a lot of votes for her. Wait Until Dark is an entertaining thriller that mostly seems to exist to let its leading lady drive herself into a state of more and more hysteria with each minute. The combination of fear, tears and panic is always impressive, and it's easy to imagine how difficult it must be to portray these feelings every day. But on the other hand, a movie like this also never allows an actress to go beyond these expected emotions. The results are therefore performances that only happen on the surface and feel ultimately rather empty, despite all the dedication and hard work that went into them.
The woman called yesterday about coming to get the doll and Sam couldn't find it. Sam never met the doll lady in his life before, never laid eyes on her before. He told me so.
Don't do this to yourself, Susie.
And then there was the woman he was supposed to photograph yesterday. Sam said she didn't show up. But he was away an awful long time waiting for her, and her name was Luciana, and so is Mrs. Rhodes.
This is obviously the fault of the script and the style of the movie, and there is no use in blaming the leading actress for doing what she is supposed to do. I mean, we don't blame a performer in a comedy for making us laugh either. But the problem with the character of Susie Hendricks is the same as with almost every character in thrillers like this. She's basically only a plot device to develop the tension and keep the audience at the edge of their seats. But was Audrey Hepburn maybe able to add a bit more to this and create a believable character out of the script? In some ways, Audrey Hepburn gave one of her most unlikely performances in Wait Until Dark. She always knew how to control the screen with elegance, beauty and poise, but she was also often cast in parts that demanded exactly this of her and not much more, even if she gave more. Wait Until Dark was different. Susie Hendricks never needs Audrey Hepburn to come to life. Unlike Princess Anne or Sabrina, Susie does not depend on the charm and grace of Audrey Hepburn. Therefore, she had to work harder in this case and needed to carry the story only with her own acting.
And I've been forgetting something very important.
What's that?
That I know Sam, and I don't know Mr. Rote.
Susie, you've got to get one thing through your head. It's what the police think that counts. If we want to help Sam, we've got to find that doll before they do.
But it isn't here! It isn't here!
It must be!
And on the plus side, Audrey Hepburn succeeded in a lot of parts. The script gave her the chance to show a softer and more relatable side to Susie before throwing her into the main plot. She is shown as a woman who was recently blinded and has to adjust herself to the new demands of her everyday life. And Audrey manages to be more touching and engaging than many other actresses might have been, adding a sense of humor or sadness to her work whenever possible.
Can I go with you?
Sure.
But I'll be home much quicker if you don't. You know there was a murder around here last night? They found the body this morning. A lady from Scarsdale. I heard it on the radio.
So?
Well, what if I get chopped up in little pieces and dumped in the river? Little tiny pieces that nobody could possibly ever recognize as having been a poor, defenseless or blind lady whose husband was off in Asbury Park. Do I have to be the world's champion blind lady?
Yes.
Then I will be. be whatever you want me to be. Just tell me what you want, and then that's what I'll be.
Susie.
I mean it. Sam?
Huh?
Are you looking at me?
But in the end, even the blindness of the character is more a plot device than anything else. It didn't influence the script, but rather the other way around. The character of Susie was created as a vessel for the tension of the movie, and therefore it had to be shaped in a specific form to fit to its strange demands.
You lost your sight in an accident?
Yes, in a car crash, or really far from the crash. And then one day I was practicing crossing at the lights, and the cars were piling up around me like mad, and suddenly a man named Sam grabbed me. And that was that.
And even Audrey Hepburn is not always able to overcome the contradictions of the role. But it is to her credit that she used the little opportunities she was given in Wait Until Dark to her advantage, and made the flaws in both the plot and the character less noticeable.
Hi. I just what I called to tell you I was the best in blind school today.
That's my girl.
I really truly was, cross my heart.
From a technical point of view, Audrey Hepburn fulfilled her tasks in Wait Until Dark very well, at least in my opinion. She portrays the blindness of Susie convincingly without ever trying to direct any attention to it. Just like Audrey Hepburn, Susie does not want her blindness to be a big deal, even if she is suffering from the fact that she cannot see. Audrey is able to create some touching and affecting moments here that help her to build a connection between Susie and the audience.
You shouldn't have called me names. I don't call you names.
You're right. I shouldn't say things like that. It was wrong of me.
It's okay.
It isn't okay. People shouldn't say things like that to each other. They're mean things, and people shouldn't say mean things. Just I get terribly frightened sometimes. I'm not a very good blind lady, Gloria, and I'm still not used to all this dark brown.
Unfortunately, Audrey Hepburn is not always so successful in her performance. In some scenes, she falls into the trap of a melodramatic or worse, unconvincing acting style that sharply contrasts with her earlier and later scenes.
Mike?
No!
But apart from some missteps, Audrey does handle the terror of the later scenes very well. At first, she shows how Susie might even enjoy the situation she finds herself in, how she likes to outsmart the man who tried to get something from her, but later she realizes the seriousness of it all. And here she achieves, at least for me, some of the most haunting images of fear and desperation I have ever seen, sometimes reminding you of an animal trapped in a cage.
You're lying again.
Oh, what is that?
Down we go.
All right. All right, you can have it. You can have the... No! I'll give it to you if you'll just go and
Yes, Susie?
not hurt me.
Say please.
Please.
So Audrey Hepburn surely does a lot right and succeeded in many scenes to give a performance that goes beyond the limits of the script. She did, at least for me, an amazing job to build the tension of the final scenes. Thanks to her acting in these moments and the fact that she created Susie as such an endearing character before. But the structure of the movie only allows her to take little steps in this direction. In the end, her performance might be mostly on the surface, but this was still enough to turn Wait Until Dark into a gripping thriller. So, we now had two legends with two performances that are not among the brightest spots in their careers. Now, let's move on to the legendary performances.
Nominated for Best Actress. She also received the Golden Globe Award nomination as Best Actress. The British Academy honored her as Most Promising Newcomer of the Year. God knows she was. The French Academy of Cinema named her the Best Foreign Actress of the Year. She won the Donatello Award in Italy. And the Washington Post critic wrote, "She is a stunning woman, far from shallow, in revealing the facets of the strange poetry-writing Bonnie."
Yes, Faye Dunaway's career might have been on a steady decline for quite some time, but her legacy in Hollywood history will always be undeniable, thanks to having appeared in 3 modern classics: Bonnie and Clyde, Chinatown, and Network. This is certainly a legacy that many other actresses wouldn't even dare to dream of. However, appearing in these kind of classics, movies that are known not only for a single performance but for so much more, might put the performer in danger of being overshadowed, as his or her performance is only one part of the whole thing. It might seem that the images of her screen performances are even more famous than the performances themselves. Bonnie Parker holding a gun, Evelyn Mulroy wearing a black hat with a veil in front of her eyes, or Diana Christensen following moments of insanity on TV with a swirled combination of scheming delight and ruthless calculation. But it's not difficult to go beyond these images and discover the rich, complex and intelligent creations that Faye Dunaway realized, and how she left her mark on these classics. In regards to Bonnie and Clyde, her electric confidence on the screen, her ability to turn herself into the unchallenged image of a well-known character, and the iconic nature of her movie all resulted in a performance that is as noteworthy for its contribution to the overall tone of the movie as well as its dedication to be a part of its style. Even though Bonnie and Clyde is another movie that turned 1967 into one of the most celebrated years in movie history, the idea of putting an infamous gang of criminals into the center of the plot, portraying their point of view and turning them into fascinating anti-heroes, left a bad aftertaste for many contemporary critics. But Bonnie and Clyde never intended to be the kind of biopic that audiences were used to, but deliberately took a loose approach to reinterpret a familiar theme for a new era of filmmaking. Bonnie and Clyde is an almost joyful presentation of crimes and murder, mixing the seriousness of various situations with unexpected comedy, and turns Bonnie and Clyde into likable, charming, attractive, and adventurous characters.
Hey, what's your name anyhow?
Clyde Barron.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Parker. Pleased to meet you.
And like the picture itself, the actors could take a lot more artistic freedom, rather creating themselves an image of these characters and shaping the viewer's opinions and thoughts, instead of fulfilling their expectations. The image of Faye Dunaway has by now basically become the image of Bonnie Parker too. It's a rare case when a performer almost replaced the real-life character, redefining it completely instead of retelling its story.
You sure do know a lot about automobiles, don't you?
Yes, I guess I do.
Well, would you know what kind of car this is?
This is a 4-cylinder Ford coupe.
No.
Sure is.
This is a stolen four-cylinder Ford coupe. Well, I'm Miss Bonnie Parker, and this here's Mr. Clyde Barrow. We rob banks.
Looking at Bonnie and Clyde's Oscar nominations, both the importance and the success of the cast become visible very quickly. With 5 acting nominations, Bonnie and Clyde joins a handful of other movies that share this record, pictures like All About Eve or On the Waterfront. And this honor makes perfect sense. The dynamic between the whole cast is the engine that keeps Bonnie and Clyde going. But if they are all equal in terms of success, Faye Dunaway is more equal than the others.
We'll take his picture, we'll send it to all the newspapers, and then everybody's gonna see Captain Frank Hammer of the Texas Rangers with the Barra Gang, and all of us just as friendly as pie. Now, you know, we are just about the friendliest folks you would ever want to meet. Big old Texas Ranger waves his gun at us, and we just welcome him like he was one of our own.
Because more than any other member of the ensemble, she becomes a symbol for the tone and atmosphere of the story. Radiant, romantic and glorious in the beginning, tragic and miserable in the end. She may always have to take a step back to Warren Beatty's Clyde as the most central and deciding figure. But Faye Dunaway's screen presence and natural instincts work extremely well and help her to show Bonnie's influence as well as her independence and self-determination. Bonnie is always as much her own person as she is part of a team.
Get rid of her!
I can't get... She's Buck's wife.
Well, then get rid of them both!
Why? What's the matter with you anyway?
She is what's the matter with me. She's nothing but a dumb, stupid, backcountry...
Now, you look!
She ain't got a brain in her head.
What makes you any better? What makes you so damn special? You were just a West Dallas waitress and spent half your time picking up truck drivers?
You bet! Oh, big Clyde Barrow! You're just like your brother. Ignorant, uneducated hillbilly. Listen, the only special thing about you is your peculiar ideas about lovemaking, which is no lovemaking at all.
Both the movie and Bonnie Parker benefit from Faye Dunaway's ability to almost explode with energy, while always working very hard on the continuity of her characterization.
Ain't you ashamed? You're trying to steal an old lady's automobile.
Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty only have a couple of scenes before Bonnie jumps into Clyde's car, thrilled by his looks, his character, and his crimes. And both actors had to build the foundation of the whole relationship in these short, early moments, and they succeeded by portraying how they find unexpected fulfillment with each other. Faye Dunaway's radiant beauty doesn't fit into her environment, and in this way she's the perfect match for Warren Beatty's Clyde. He too seems to be too handsome for his surroundings, too out of place. Bonnie and Clyde are outsiders before they even meet, but thanks to the movie, in a much more glamorous way than in real life.
It was armed robbery.
My. The things that turn up in the street these days.
From there on, Faye Dunaway uses her charm and bubbly personality to turn not only Bonnie but also Clyde into the adventurous and glamorous couple the movie wants them to be. For this, she combines stylized moments and a stark realism, and like the movie itself, her performance is caught between old and new Hollywood, an over-the-top approach and modern acting choices. The development of Bonnie is helped by Faye Dunaway's ability to create a certain danger in and around the characters she is playing, raising her voice to a threatening volume and switching her soft face into a hardened mask in 1 second.
I thought you'd be happy if I got shot! Yeah, it would have saved us all a lot of trouble! Then don't let that woman talk to me like that! Just shut up! Just shut up your big mouth! At least do that much when you just shut up!
Bonnie!
You stop the car, I want to talk to you.
Later, Faye Dunaway displays a great area of emotions and is able to turn Bonnie's newfound fear and desperation into haunting and heartbreaking moments.
You know, when we started out, I thought we was really going somewhere. But this is it. We're just going, huh?
I love you.
especially during the visit of her family, when Bonnie realizes that she will never be able to get her old life back. Faye Dunaway finds the uncertainty and wariness of Bonnie in silent, restrained moments.
Me and Bonnie were talking, and we were talking about the time we were going to settle down and get us a home. And she says to me, she says, you know, I couldn't bear to live more than 3 miles from my precious mother. Now, how'd you like that, Mother Parker?
I don't believe I would. I surely don't. You try to live 3 miles from me and you won't live long, honey. You best keep running, Clyde Barra. And you know it. Bye, baby.
And her final close-up beautifully sums up her whole character, even in the most serious situation. A comforting look of love and understanding without any regret or self-pity.
Hey.
So, Faye Dunaway plays her part with the right amount of emotions and a combination of over-the-top and subtlety that creates truly unforgettable moments of an unforgettable character. Faye Dunaway maybe benefited from the legend surrounding the real Bonnie Parker, but she also created a legend on her own and bursts with confidence and energy to catch all the different sides of her character.
Now, Bonnie and Clyde are the Barra Gang. I'm sure you all have read how they rob and steal, and those who squeal are usually found dying or dead. They call them cold-hearted killers. They say they are heartless and mean. But I say this with pride, that I once knew Clyde when he was honest and upright and clean.
So let's move on to the other legendary performance and character in this category.
It's so nice to finally get to meet Mrs. Robinson.
Where is she?
How many times have you heard that from young boys over the years?
Yes,
a lot.
Many,
right?
many times, yes.
Mrs. Robinson in The Graduate is undoubtedly an instantly recognizable part of movie history and stands firmly among other equally unforgotten movie characters like Norma Desmond, Scarlett O'Hara, Mary Poppins, or Nurse Ratched. In the later years of her life, Anne Bancroft often complained that her appearance in The Graduate overshadowed most of the other work of her career. A career that gained her critically acclaim on the screen, on the stage, and on television, and turned her into an Oscar, Tony, and Emmy-winning actress. Fortunately for Anne Bancroft, her Mrs. Robinson never prevented her from continuing to work as a highly versatile actress. Mostly because Mrs. Robinson became a character that seems to exist independently from its creator. Neither Anne Bancroft nor The Graduate are truly needed for her anymore. Mary Poppins is always Julie Andrews, but Mrs. Robinson never ceases to exist without Anne Bancroft. She is the kind of sensation that even people who never heard of either Anne Bancroft or The Graduate are aware of. And so, despite the iconic nature of the character, Anne Bancroft's actual performance of this woman seems to be completely separated from what Mrs. Robinson by now has become in the public's mind. So let's take a look at Anne Bancroft's work in The Graduate from an independent point of view, forgetting everything about his reputation and fame, and just see how Anne Bancroft approached Mrs. Robinson, how she crafted her thoughts and feelings, and how the origins of the character were defined.
I'm sorry.
I really don't want to put this on again. Won't you bring it up?
Where is it?
On the table in the hall.
The script of The Graduate does not shape Mrs. Robinson to the point where an actress only needs to speak the words and let the writing do the rest. Instead, the character left large rooms for interpretation and different approaches. She could have been played as a pure comic relief, or a sexy, fun-loving adulteress, or even some kind of grotesque monster from a different era. But Anne Bancroft managed to work in perfect harmony with the style of the picture. Her approach to Mrs. Robinson is matter-of-fact, sensual, thoughtful, complex, and provoking. And this way, she single-handedly made her the domineering, unforgettable, and unique creation she turned out to be.
I mean, I don't know what you want me to do.
Why don't you watch?
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Will you bring me a hanger?
What?
A hanger.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I guess this isn't the bathroom, is it?
It's, down the hall.
How are you, Benjamin?
Fine, thank you, Mrs. Robinson. The, bathroom's down at the end of the hall.
Such a pleasant room.
Look, Mrs. Robinson, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm awfully...
Is there an ashtray in here?
No.
Oh, yes, I forgot the track star doesn't smoke.
The Graduate is a movie that seems to be a mix of everything. Drama, comedy, satire. A movie that is strangely timeless despite so depending on the time it was made in and portrays. It shows characters that are lost in their life, trying to find their own direction and others trying to influence them. And in the middle of all this is Mrs. Robinson, a woman apparently not interested in or influenced by anything. There's something surprisingly empty about her, rid of any personal feelings or emotions. She's very direct about her sexual interest in Benjamin, but never desperate in any way.
Benjamin, I want you to know that I'm available to you, and if you won't sleep with me this time...
Oh, my Christ.
What do you drink? Bourbon?
Look, Mrs. Robinson, I drove you home. I was glad to do it, but I have some things on my mind. Can you understand that?
Yes.
All right.
What do you drink?
Her affair is neither a return to her own use, nor does it bring her any kind of personal fulfillment. Instead, Anne Bancroft constantly reminds Benjamin, as well as the audience, that she only follows her own rules without any compromises. The relationship is never something she truly needs. Instead, it seems to be another way for Mrs. Robinson to spend the day. There are performances that tell the viewers everything about the character, and there are performances that tell the viewer just a little bit. In the case of Mrs. Robinson, Anne Bancroft walked a very thin line to show the audience an unsatisfied, lonely, and also dangerous woman, but constantly refused to open her up in any way. This was a very daring approach that could easily have destroyed its own purpose. If Anne Bancroft had told too little, Mrs. Robinson might have been lost in a plot that drops her very often, and if she had told too much, it might have destroyed the mysterious atmosphere she so carefully constructed.
Not my idea. This is my father's idea.
Benjamin, I thought I made myself perfectly clear about this.
Look, we'll go out to dinner and have a drink, and I'll bring her right back. Because it was either that or a dinner party for the two families. And I'm afraid I couldn't quite handle that if you don't mind. Look, I have no intention of ever taking your precious daughter out again in her life, so don't get upset about it.
But I am. I'm extremely upset about it, Benjamin.
It's a testament to Anne Bancroft's abilities that her Mrs. Robinson still turned out to be so dynamic that it became unnecessary to know more about her. Losing the distance that Anne Bancroft keeps to her surroundings, as well as the audience, would be like knowing the tricks of a magician. The whole excitement would be gone. It's possible to speculate and guess, but the truth will never be fully revealed. Just like a magic trick, Anne Bancroft's performance leaves room open for all kinds of speculations and interpretations.
May I ask you a question? What do you think of me?
What do you mean?
You've known me nearly all your life. You must have formed some opinion of me.
Well, I always thought that you were a very nice person.
Did you know I was an alcoholic?
What?
Did you know that? May I have a drink?
I'll drink, of course. You didn't see me.
Waiter, I will have a martini.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't have to be so nervous, you know.
Anne Bancroft portrayed her role without any grand exaggeration, but a straightforwardness that created a stark contrast to the unique nature of the part.
Thank you.
Right.
What are you so scared of?
I'm not scared, Mrs. Robinson.
Then why do you keep running away?
Because you're going to bed. I don't think I should be up here.
Haven't you ever seen anybody in a slip before?
As the different emotions of Mrs. Robinson come and go, Anne Bancroft rarely changes her own interpretation and only uses small hints to suggest her character's inner feelings. Her Mrs. Robinson sparkles with self-confidence and calmness, but these two aspects constantly cover all deeper feelings, may they be anxiety, anger, sadness, insecurity, or annoyance.
Exactly as I say.
Listen to me very carefully, Benjamin. You are not to see Elaine again, ever. Those are my orders. Is that clear?
Mrs. Robinson, do you think
I can make things quite unpleasant.
How?
In order to keep Elaine away from you, I am prepared to tell her everything.
I don't believe you.
Then you better start believing me.
Benjamin, why are you asking me all these questions?
Because I'm interested, Mrs. Robinson. Now, what was your major subject at college?
Art.
Art? But I thought you... I guess you kind of lost interest in it over the years, then.
Kind of.
Maybe the character of Mrs. Robinson is much more iconic than Anne Bancroft's actual performance, but this is a case when reality triumphs over everything that legend has created. It's a fascinating and complex portrayal that fulfills all expectations and even more. Sure, Anne Bancroft's career is not just a graduate, but there's no reason to complain that this masterful performance is the signature work of her career.
Are you trying to seduce me?
Not anymore.
We now covered the legendary actresses and the legendary performances. Therefore, let's move on to an actress who built her own kind of legendary reputation.
People to pretend. I like them to really mean what they're... That's all that's the difference with me. I'm not very clever. I'm not a great actress, but I speak the truth.
British character actress and Dame Edith Evans may not be as familiar anymore as her 4 co-nominees, but she still enjoyed a very high and respected reputation as one of the first ladies of the British stage and screen. Theatre critic James Agate wrote of her, "Let me not mince matters. Miss Edith Evans is the most accomplished of living and practicing English actresses. And even if you never heard of Edith Evans, you probably know this.
A handbag!
Like Judi Dench, Edith Evans started her relationship with the Academy rather late in her career, receiving 3 acting nominations during the 60s.
National treasures. To present the next award, here is one of England's most distinguished actresses, Dame Edith Evans.
As I already mentioned, Oscar races and pre-Oscar awards were a very different thing back then, and many Oscar winners were completely ignored by other award bodies. But still, Edith Evans came into the Oscar race with Best Actress awards from the National Board of Review, the New York Film Critics, the Berlin Film Festival, the BAFTAs and the Golden Globes.
Es waren überhaupt die großen Alten des Films, die als Schauspieler überzeugten. So konnte die 78-jährige Engländerin Edith Evans den Preis als beste weibliche Darstellerin mit nach Hause nehmen.
At a time when there were far fewer awards than today, you can say that she completely dominated the race. And even if her movie did not make the same impact, culturally and financially, as that of her co-nominees, she must have been considered a frontrunner, or at least a strong contender in this race. Her long-lost husband returns to live with his wife again, only to disappear again a couple of scenes later. Throughout her performance, Edith Evans never overstates the tragedy of Mrs. Ross, but always lets the character speak for herself. It's a performance that is almost impossible to fully grasp and understand, as Edith Evans herself leaves so many questions open, constantly adding new aspects and dimensions to her part, flawlessly combining, separating, changing, and intervening different aspects and understandings of Mrs. Ross. Is her work worthy of the distinct legend it created? The answer is an easy yes. She not only met all expectations, but does even more, crafting images of unforgettable loneliness and mental instability, only to go even beyond and mix them all with different perceptions and understanding. Edith Evans maybe played a character who, despite all the eccentricities and fantasies, is tragically ordinary, but her performance is anything but.
Are you there?
As I said in the beginning, this is a very exciting lineup with much to appreciate and 3 performances that in many other years might be easy winners. So without any further comment, this is my ranking of the nominees.
You must try not to worry about it. Now, I have some instructions for you. I want you to go straight back to the gallery. Start your motor. When you...
Keep tapping. Tap. Tap. Tap.
What's it like?
What you mean, prison?
No. Armed robbery.
Ain't like anything.
Shoot, I knew you never robbed a place, you faker. Yes?
For you.
Thank you. Hello?
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes?
It's Benjamin.
Yes?
Benjamin Braddock.
Benjamin, where are you?
Can you look through the glass? Can you see me now?
Yes, I can.
Well, I want you to know how much I appreciate this. Really.
The number.
What?
The room number, Benjamin. I think you ought to tell me that.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's 568.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh. I'll see you later, Mrs. Robinson.
Check, please.
From an historical point of view, I understand Katharine Hepburn's win.
The winner is Katharine Hepburn, and guess who's coming to dinner?
Who else would have won? Faye Dunaway was a bright new star, but hadn't proven herself yet. And was this the kind of role they wanted to award? And Bancroft had just won an Oscar a couple of years earlier. And like Faye Dunaway, was this the kind of role they wanted to reward? Surely nobody would have minded to see Audrey Hepburn win a second Oscar, but for Wait Until Dark? And when you want to award a second Oscar to an actress, would Katharine Hepburn not be the more logical choice? And I guess that it was impossible for many members of old Hollywood to watch this scene and then not vote for Katharine. So yes, I completely understand this win, and I don't mind since Kate gave a great performance, but personally, I think this lineup had richer and better options. If you have any opinions or thoughts on these performances, let me know in the comments below or on Twitter. Thanks for watching.